I'm like exactly who this camera is not meant for, but I'm trying to use it exactly for my purpose. Hi, thanks for joining me. So today I'm going to be doing just a short review on this 5DS, the Canon 5DS, the 50.6 megapixel full frame camera, which I believe to this day still is one of Canon's highest megapixel offerings, unlike, Sony and Fuji. I bought this camera as a intermediary, or a second body if you want to say it non-fancy. So I bought this at a time when this body was fairly cheap. This body was way cheaper than the 1DX Mark III, and this was cheaper than the Canon 5D Mark IV. So I bought it around 1,300 bucks. I believe the Mark IV on the used market was going for around 2,400, and then the 1DX Mark III was sky high. So much that wasn't practical. Still not practical, like 2,600 bucks, I think. But I bought this one because I currently shoot with a 1DX Mark II, which I love the camera, but 20 megapixels doesn't really give you much cropping, especially for landscapes or mostly landscapes, especially with a wide angle lens. You can't really crop it in too much before you start noticing. So I needed a second shooter, and I ended up settling on this 5DS. Now, I read the reviews, I studied the camera for months before I bought it. And then I bought it, and then I was like, man, the reviews were right. So in most of these reviews, everybody was saying that this is a perfect studio camera or a perfect, like, slow moving, where your subject's not moving a lot. It's meant for like stationary type work on a tripod, things like that. Well, unfortunately, that is my style. I've had this thing on a tripod not even once. Haven't ever had it on a tripod. It was always moving. It's always meant to be like mobile. Basically like my 1DX Mark II, except higher megapixels. Because before this, I used to shoot with a 5D Mark II. I actually owned 3 of them. All 3 failed and then went to the 1DX Mark II. But I loved having just a higher megapixel camera that can do almost as much as my 1DX Mark II. So I ended up settling on this. And everyone was right in their reviews. If you don't have this thing on a tripod, if you don't have perfect lighting conditions where you're shooting at ISO 50, 100, or 160 or 200, you're going to have a pretty bad day. I've never seen noise on my 1DX until I get to like 6,000, 12,000 ISO around there. I'm like, oof, that's starting to get a little noisy before I have to apply corrections. I'm seeing noise with this thing at ISO 400. At ISO 800, you're going, maybe it's time for a flash. Maybe it's time to, come back when it's sunny out, because I've never had a modern camera. 2016, this thing came out. Never had a modern camera be that bad with noise. Some attribute it to the big sensor, because I'm sure it's a pretty big sensor. But I don't know. I was just taken back a little bit just with how bad the noise was. Shutter-wise, I think it can do 5 frames per second. It's just the details. The main reason I love this camera is just how much you can crop in. I mean, you can take a subject from 10 feet away and crop in and still have their eyes perfectly in focus. I mean, it blows. me away. But on the other hand, it's not like practical besides perfect conditions. And I keep saying that because the noise is so ridiculous that even in ISO 400 or 800, when you start to get to 100, 200 crop, then it's practically not really usable. If you apply corrections, if you put it on your Facebook where the picture's this size, I mean, it's all right, it's doable. But for professional or for printing some things out, not super great. Now I'll try and attach some photos of the noise just to see how bad it is. But if I forget, leave something in the comments. Otherwise, this thing works great. I haven't had any issues with it. I've sent it in for cleaning once. But if you're getting this camera, you need Canon L lenses. If you don't have those lenses, you're going to notice imperfections so bad. I have a particular lens, well, both the 50mm f1.2 and my 28 to 300 image stabilized L lens. They both have really bad pink chromatic aberrations, and I've never really noticed it up until I shot with this thing, because it draws it out and it's extremely, extremely visible, to the point where I try not to mount those lenses on this body if I don't have to, except the 50mm I run with it because it's a portrait lens. But this is there's so much detail that it shows you things that you don't even want to see, which unfortunately is a good and a bad. If you have a really, really nice lens, especially for landscape, you're going to get some really crisp, sharp photos. But if you have a really cheap, junky lens, you're going to see all those imperfections, unsharpness, everything like that. The autofocus system on this, even though it's, from what I've read, what I've researched, is supposedly the same autofocus system that's in the 1DX Mark II, from what I've read, from what I've seen. However, using it, completely different. I mean, it operates exactly the same prompts, the same buttons, everything. It just works a lot worse, a lot slower. Even the same exact lens on my 1DX Mark II and the same lens on here, this one works way, way slower. Don't know why. It's updated the firmware, it's everything, it's set. It's just slower. It locks on, but it just doesn't focus the lens as quick. And then sometimes it will hunt for just the most minuscule thing. It will misfocus. The easiest, I don't know how to describe it. If it's a black background and you have a white object, it will misfocus on the white. It's happened to me like 4 or 5 times. My 1DX doesn't have this issue. It's just something with contrast in this autofocus system hasn't been working well for me. But then again, I'm not your perfect studio, mount this on a tripod, dust it off with a feather duster. This thing gets strapped to my back with a lens. I see something, I yank it out, ting, 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 take a few pictures, just throw it back and keep going. I'm like exactly who this camera is not meant for, but I'm trying to use it exactly for my purpose. That being said, my main drawback with this camera is the lack of GPS. Now I know. The 5D Mark IV is exactly what I need. And I know I test drove it. That might be on my to buy list and then compare with this one because 50 megapixels. Huge files, huge detail, love it. The rest of the camera, The 5D Mark IV features out the wazoo. Fast autofocus works great. 30 megapixels, sometimes soft image from the two that I've rented. So that's my problem. The one of my personal things that I love to do on my cameras is I love to have GPS. That way, once I take the picture, I can throw it in my unlicensed Adobe Lightroom, and I can go through the map and see everywhere I've taken photos, just in case there's a location that I'm like, oh, that'd be cool to go back and redo. Well, unfortunately, this thing does not come with GPS stock. Thankfully, for another $250, you can buy a GPS receiver that you mount up to your hot shoe, and now you have GPS on your 5DS that is linked. It's in your image details, works just fine. However, you just lost your hot shoe, and I've ran into this issue quite a few times where you have to choose. Do you either want a GPS to take your location? Do you either want a hot shoe or your flash to take pictures, or I use my speedlight controller so I can control all my flashes? You can't have all three or either one. You can only have one at a time. I mean, obviously, yeah, because it mounts on the hot shoe, obviously. However, it's just annoying because then you lose out on GPS data for all those pictures. But my solution was have the GPS on, take one picture, take it off, put on your speed lights, take the rest, sync it up in Lightroom. But that's extra hassle that my 1DX Mark II and the 5D Mark IV don't have. But then also 50 megapixels. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm a little at a loss because I like this camera, but at the same time it does like half of what I needed to or wanted to, or it's just so noisy, and then the noisier the photos, the bigger the image size is. So I've had a photo that I took at 800 ISO, pretty dark. I think it was even a long exposure. It was like 88 megabytes for one photo. So then once you convert it from RAW and you make your tweaks and then you Photoshop it, and your JPEG's still like 45 megabytes. I mean, you have great image quality, but then by the time you downscale it, you lose a lot of resolution, in my opinion. Of course, you can be a purist and save it in PNG or TIFF, or For the professionals, this is the camera for you, or the 5D Mark IV would also be a camera for you. But for a second body, for me, it's really hard to decide between this and the 5D Mark IV because I love the file sizes. I love how simple this camera is to use. It compared to like the 5D or the 1DX Mark II, our controls are in the same place. It just feels like home where I know where all the stuff is, close my eyes, regulate everything. 5D Mark IV, a little bit different. File sizes are great, ISO performance sucks, low light sucks. But then again, when I say great images, this thing has amazing dynamic range. So it's supposed to be like a review or an overview or, my thoughts, but I wish there was a camera like in between, that's a DSLR, in between like this and the 5D Mark IV that's say 45 megapixels or 40, good light performance, and basically like this. No, I don't want the Canon, what is it, the R6, the RP mirror. I don't want mirrorless. I like when you go to take a picture, you hear this. I mean, how can you get away from that? Instead, you get like electronic sounds. It's pretty close to, when you buy a new car and they take the nice V8 out and give you like a 1.0 liter motor, and then they have to pump fake exhaust sounds through the speakers. That's what mirrorless is to me. So I'm at a loss of, I'm at a point where I have trips coming up. I have places I'll be visiting, but I don't know if I'm going to keep this camera or switch over to the 5D Mark IV temporarily. Or, in a perfect world, if I had money, I'd just get the 1DX Mark III and then probably a backup camera. But yeah, I've used this thing for a year. Very impressed. I like how it feels in the hands, like the images, as long as they're not taken at higher ISOs. Like, even though this thing can go to 6,400, I would be very scared to probably take it up to 3,200 or 1,600 ISO. Because it's noisy. Very, very noisy. Yeah. But hopefully you just like my random thoughts about the 5D Mark IV that have absolutely no format or nothing. This is just my use of the camera. Yeah, hope this was somehow helpful to you, and stick around where I have other reviews that are a lot more cohesive than this. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.